Hello, everyone, and welcome to Osquery office hours. Here in Boston, it's gray. I don't know what it's like where others are, but hopefully the weather's nice enough. I don't think I have any announcements since last meeting. Maybe as a highlight, I'll mention we had decided to target the end of September for a release. So maybe we'll decide to talk about that, but I don't know. Announcements from anyone else? Okay, next section is sort of an open section for questions, issues, or PRs anyone dropping in wants to discuss. I'll pause for a moment. Okay, everyone looks familiar, so maybe we just move on to our normal agenda. Mike, you raised the idea of moving the recorded office hours over to an Osquery account.
Yeah, if the Osquery committee or entity has a Google account, then I think you can turn on a YouTube account as part of that. So I don't believe there are any fees associated with uploading videos to YouTube. My personal account, I have like 3 2-minute videos, but I mean, Trail of Biz has hundreds of hours of videos, and I don't know if that's costing us anything, but the motivation seems to have been that it's the predominant amount of video on our account at the moment. So we have to highlight our other initiatives, and at first everyone was in a rush to just move it. They're like, move this content, get it somewhere else. It's drowning out everything else, is what I'm reading between the lines, because it wasn't explained. It was just decided over the weekend, apparently. And our compromise, and I don't know if this is a long-term compromise, but our compromise is just to keep the video unlisted. It's linked to from the Slack, from the Osquery Slack, and from the meeting notes. But I think ideally we would just have an Osquery branded channel, if we can do that without any incurring cost. So, but I don't control the accounts, so I'm putting this out there as a request.
Couple of thoughts that I just don't even know the answer to. I imagine unlisted doesn't sound like the end of the world, because mostly I expect people to find these through the links in the minutes, so that seems fine. It sounds like the motivation here is that the video is basically biasing the algorithm, like the automatic recommendation algorithms, away from your other content.
I really don't know. I noticed myself, it was like a year and a half ago or a year ago, that where we used to have the Trail of Bits page, the landing page on YouTube, is sorted by most recent. Someone decided to sort it by like a manual sorting, because most recent was almost always the Osquery meetings. And I think that the number of people that land on it from search is probably 0. I think I left the QueryCon videos open to search, and they're publicly as listed, because those, I think you could ostensibly have some sort of topic interest that overlaps with Osquery and end up there. But the office meeting notes all have the same description. They're not, annotated in any way. So I think they're probably of interest to mostly us, and so I can see why they want to kind of unlist them. So, but that's the current state of things. They're unlisted.
No, that makes sense to me. I don't mean to second guess. I'm just trying to understand.
Well, I was sensitive. I was like, what's the matter? Like Osquery overwhelming everything, but yeah, I can understand. So.
Do you know if we can change the owners of the existing stuff, or does this fundamentally mean that everything gets a new URL if we move the existing content?
I'm afraid that means it gets a new URL. I don't know how to rehome content, but it's possible. It's possible, and I haven't looked into it. But I have all of the recordings, so assuming that someone wants to deputize me temporarily for uploading the office hours to a new channel, I can totally do that, and it wouldn't cost.
The other question here is like, what would we? So currently, Trail of Bit. This meeting is Trail of Bits' meeting.
Yeah, and we could change that too, assuming that Osquery would have a Google account. They could host meetings, right?
I mean, we have a G Suite account, but I don't honestly know. Like changing the meeting also means changing all the standing URLs again, so it's kind of a pain in the neck. So I don't know if it.
Yeah, it's a minor pain.
Yeah.
The concern I think I have is what is the pricing model for Google Meet? Like I don't control this account, so
Yeah.
Is it just Google Hangouts if you don't pay for it? Is it something else?
Is Google going to change it in 3 months?
Yeah, are they going to monetize us?
I'm happy to add you to the G Suite domain. Maybe that's the simplest thing, is just to invite you to the G Suite domain and let you like go poke around YouTube and see what makes sense. Does anyone think that's a bad idea?
Do this one step at a time. The first step was that the videos got unlisted. The second step is we can try to set up this account and then go from there.
Any objections to adding Mike to the G Suite account? Okay.
Sounds good to me. I was just double checking. It looks like you can't necessarily move videos between accounts without re-uploading them.
Well, it's a waste of Google's CPU, not mine.
I mean, I wonder if this is the kind of thing that's worth reaching out to Google for. Of like, can I change ownership, or if we're just too small fry and they won't care.
I just assume there's nobody working there. It's just a building of robots.
Not wrong. Okay, I will follow up with Mike afterwards, and we can pull you into the G Suite account and figure that out. So that sounds pretty straightforward.
Okay.
So if no one else has anything to say about that, we can move on. There's a couple of PRs that are open right now that I thought merited passing discussion. One of them, the first one is PR 8139. This is from a Collide person. And what this does is this changes the way we create the virtual tables, resolving a couple of long-standing bugs. Basically, when we create tables, we create some of them without row ID. This is a function of how we handle indexes. And as the Osquery developers understand it today, we think the without row ID is important. At least that's kind of what we've said in past tickets and when we've started stuff. And I'm a little fuzzy about all these details, but when SQLite introduced like without row ID, it looks like some of the parsers don't know how to parse without row ID. So what happens is when we create when you create a table, this is really confusing. I'm sorry. When you create a table in an extension in a module, it makes a named virtual table, and there's like there's like I think 3 tables that get created automatically under the hood, and we are passing the column definition into one of those calls. Because we're passing a column definition in without row ID, it causes it to break one of those virtual tables. And the practical effect of all of this is that it doesn't show up in the SQLite master or SQLite temp master. So if you like 90% of our tables show up in SQLite temp master, but 10% do not. Anything that has a row ID doesn't show up in the temp master because it has this without row ID syntax parsing there. So I was talking to Micah about it, and we kind of just decided to remove the column definitions from the SQLite temp master. You don't need them, and I don't know what anyone uses them for. So I thought I'd throw that out there. That was really confusing. You kind of just have to read the PRs, the PR and like some of the linked things to understand what's going on.
Do you anticipate that there's any like consequences to users of Osquery?
So the only consequence I have found is that schemas don't show up in the SQLite temp master, but they don't reliably show up there today. So that doesn't feel important to me, right? Like if you wanted to know what the schema for a table is, there are several ways you can get it. One of them is to look at .schema, but that only works in the interactive session. If you weren't in the interactive session, you have to do something like examine SQLite temp master or look at the X table or table info pragmas, or table X info or table info pragmas. But SQLite temp master isn't reliable because it's missing 10% of our tables. So that, like, anyone who's doing that is already broken. So I kind of don't care about that side effect. And I haven't found any other side effects.
It sounds okay to me generally.
So I wanted to toss it out and kind of see if anyone was like, whoa, no, that sounds bad. But we can't find any downside. And from what we can tell, SQLite itself doesn't pass in column definitions in this case when they do similar things. Stefano, I know you ran into this bug before.
Yeah, so I was trying to remember exactly. Mostly, so the fact is that, yes, that SQL request of creating the virtual table doesn't support without row ID. Without row ID can only be used when you create a normal table, so create table. And additionally, so the question was also why we are actually doing that query at all, because we are using eponymous tables, virtual tables. So basically where the create is equal to the connect. So as soon as you just create the module itself, it auto-registers itself. So yeah, so it's the only reason to use create virtual table, to call create virtual table, is to have tables in the SQLite temp master. I mean, and you don't need to call, like, you don't need to query through that specific database. Or I also wonder, can we, I mean, if there is any issue, can we instead use create table without row ID as before? Like, why creating the virtual table? Because the virtual table, the only reason I can see is that it's like an alias that still works, and actually hit the table implementation. But if it's only for the schema, then we can just create fake tables which have the schema, but they are empty. They are in memory table, or we can just ignore, or yeah.
Yeah. So honestly, I don't know. If I understand your question right, you're asking why do we even have this create virtual table call?
Yeah, that's the start.
And so I have no idea. And I can't understand it in our Git history. And I was like, as far as I can tell, we have it because SQLite recommends you do it, but there's no why there. There's like just cargo culted from the docs. And we also know that because the create virtual temp table was failing on any table that has without row ID on it, we know that it works. So like, why do we have it at all? I have no idea, but removing it felt like a much bigger change than just removing the column definition. So
Yeah, no, sorry, I know I confused it a bit. Partially was also to endorse it, like, yeah, I don't think it is important enough. And even we could eventually think to remove it, but yes, I endorse the change. It doesn't seem problematic.
The other thing that I noticed, I did try and trace adding the column definition all the way back in Git, and the place I traced it to was that at some point in time, I think it was necessary for getting schemas through Osquery, like to get the schema out of Osquery. But I think that SQLite's just changed enough since then that it doesn't matter anymore. Because that's kind of what the comments on the original PR that added the column definitions seemed to be. They were sort of just saying, add this as a convenient helper so we can see the schema. And that doesn't seem to be true anymore. So
Yeah, I mean, the only reference to that particular SQLite temp master thing is that specific thing only work for temp database associated with each database connection. But alternative, so it really seems like something you would have to control like internally by communicating directly to SQLite, and I don't think we are exposing that to in any case, in any way.
Okay. Well, if no one objects or thinks it's a bad idea, I'll approve and merge this one because it fixes some weird little corners in our world, and it feels current status quo feels worse than having than what this PR does. I guess there's a related question here. So we call create virtual table today. We call create virtual table, and we do nothing with the status from that. So we kind of have just been suppressing this error or ignoring this error the whole time. Micah's PR adds it to the error logs, which is a no-brainer. I don't think we can. I don't know enough to know if we can stop because it looks like this is all in early initialization. This is all in like void returns. So we could panic here, or we could just error log it. And I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know if we should think about panicking if there's a failure here.
I mean, it seems like if it errors, it seems like a developer. I mean, yeah, I would break it. At the same time, actually, even before that there's that SQLite misuse, which again, from the documentation, it doesn't. We should panic. Like the SQLite documentation states that if any API returns SQLite misuse, it means that, and you are ignoring it, it means that you are going. You have a bug in your application. Yeah, you are going to see bugs. So I wanted also to comment that one. I think we should also not ignore it because we are currently.
You think it would be better to panic here, or?
I mean, let's see. I don't know. Maybe for availability, you can still keep it up. Like you, what it happens is that queries against that table will fail because there's no table registered. But I don't know, maybe. Like I'm thinking how we can catch it. Well, okay, no, we catch it with the integration tests because we are trying to query all the tables. So yeah, I'm just wondering if we were going to catch it on the tests if we don't make it hard. Yeah.
I mean, we can,
I have
you know,
to-
this PR at least just pushes it out on the error channel, and maybe that's good enough for today.
Yeah.
But
the other thing we were talking actually right now, Alessandro was mentioning actually extensions. The only thing I don't recall, and I don't know which channel exactly they use, is maybe extensions might not might lose view of something, but though at the same time it means that extension, like if changes in the SQLite temp master affect extension, means that those 10% of tables that were already missing were not being seen by extensions. Were we so lucky to never hit them and that we never noticed? Or
I think it depends on what you mean by if extensions see this. I've poked around a little bit. So when Micah found this, it rung a bell to me, because one of the things that I spent a while trying to do is understand how to get schemas out of Osquery, right? If you have an Osquery open, how can you get the schema? Because there's no dot schema available on the thrift socket. That's, you know, something, I don't know where that comes out of. So what it led me down was this place where I didn't get as far as discovering it was a row ID difference, but I found all these like little weird differences in the tables. Like some things would kind of work one way and some things would work another way. And eventually I just threw my hands up and chalked it up to gremlins. Like I never figured it out, you know, when I dug into this like 2 years ago. So I've just seen inconsistent behaviors. Again, it was like 10% of the tables. It's like most of the tables work the way you expect, and then there's a couple of them where it just doesn't. Extensions can access them, but there are certain operations where they won't get seen in, probably because they're not in the SQLite temp master. So you can't kind of just look at SQLite temp master. Maybe some of it is that if you want to know if the table is defined, you can't look for it in SQLite temp master. You have to look for it in the registry. So if you want to know if there's a table present, like you have to look in the registry, not in SQLite temp master. So it's like stuff like that that's a little weird.
But
sorry, you go.
Yeah, no, but effectively, so I think that so how an extension can query, for instance, a table on Osquery is again through the registry, not finding the table registered in its own local registry. There's a mechanism that automatically transforms that to a packet to thrift, and so it's the core Osquery that does the query. So since we have a .schema command that core does, I would expect that if there is a way from thrift to do that, and again, the extension can only communicate with core through the registry, it would use, again, that mechanism. So it's, again, the core using the same way you would the command .schema would use. So effectively, there shouldn't be a change in what the extension gets as an answer. Yeah, because otherwise it has no way to communicate with the SQLite temp master that runs in core. So yeah.
Well, I can query it.
Okay, yes, but that's, I would expect it to be a bit. So that was not what I was worried about. Like, not the user specifically knowing that SQLite temp master contains that, but instead something like supported on the protocol that was going to break. Yeah.
I mean, there might be, but I don't know it. And if it's going to break, it's already broken.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, at the same time, I was wondering why we did not see issues, or at least it didn't seem. So yeah.
Okay. It sounds like no one objects. No one knows anything that's going to break. And having consistency is better than inconsistency. So I'll approve and merge this after the meeting. But I wanted to raise it because at least in the distant past, Teddy thought that these mattered, and I think he was wrong. So
I've never seen a particular use for it, and if you found that it seems to work without it, then it seems good to me.
It seems to. I imagine also that if there's like a major problem, it will find it real fast in a pre-release.
Yeah, it's a small PR to have to revert.
Yeah.
Most of the changes are in test files I see, so.
Yeah. Okay, the other PR that I thought I would resurrect, because we had some conversation on it, is 7781. This is a PR that adds a list of fleet managers to the README file. My thought on this is that I don't know what the scope of this is. Because like I thought it was an okay idea on Slack, and then I thought about it, and I was like, "Whoa, we've got like commercial entities, we've got like a million open source things, we've got like people's random weekend projects. What's the scope?" And I'm okay to kind of roll with whatever the group thinks here. I'd probably even be fine if it just became a kind of an advertising ground that people PR'd things into, and as long as it was small enough, then we don't have to care that much. But I just don't know. I don't know what we want to do, so I thought I'd see if people had opinions.
It's totally fine with me as well, and it's fine with me that it be sort of an advertising ground, and Zercurity no longer exists, so that's interesting.
Really?
Yeah, if you follow the link to the repo, you see it's archived now, and the company doesn't exist anymore.
I wonder what Hugh's doing.
I assume Hugh joined JumpCloud.
Oh, they got bought by JumpCloud? Okay.
But Fleet, Collide, OS Control, and Zentral are all active. And I have no problem with it. I also don't care too much. Those are all also represented on the Osquery website, or well, Collide not under community projects for Collide because there's no code to point to, but
yeah, I mean, we're not really
website.
An open source fleet manager anymore.
Well, yeah, and I guess this doesn't make that claim. This just says Osquery fleet managers, and then it says freemium, which is maybe actually not true. Maybe it's more like
I stuck a suggestion there. We're commercial.
Sure, yeah. So right.
I mean, we used to have a freemium offering, but we don't anymore.
Okay, yeah. And this is a super old PR, I think, right?
Yeah, and I mean, you wouldn't know that unless you were a customer. So
yeah. So I mean, I guess in my eyes, like, yeah, I'd say I don't think it does any harm. If we
okay.
end up with like a major advertising problem, maybe we should reconsider. But there aren't that many people building Osquery fleet managers.
Well, I think there are more than you think. And I think this gets to be an interesting question of what's the scope of this, because like Cisco and Microsoft ship Osquery.
But are they Osquery fleet managers?
Is Uptix?
I'd say my feeling would be if any of those folks want to come and PR themselves into this list, it's fine with me.
That's a fine acceptance criteria. But I mean, this is where I find I started falling down, right? Because like Collide, like I believe Fleet offers a bring your own OS query. Collide doesn't, and I don't think Uptix does. I'm not sure. Wazoo is like another open sourcey one, right? So like, what's Wazoo's stance here? And we could just kind of ignore that. So it's just hard. It's hard for me to know how to proactively do this. And if we want to just make like a point of like, hey, PR your, if you're building on Osquery and want to like low key advertise, PR is cool. Like I'm good with that.
That's fine with me. Like I don't care that Collide doesn't let you bring your own Osquery. Like as far as I understand, Collide uses Osquery and provides people with Osquery Fleet Manager like capabilities. And then I think that you can do things like scheduled queries and stuff.
Yeah, you can upload packs.
So count it in my eyes. Like I just don't think that we're gonna run into that much conflict around this. But also, like if folks don't want it, like I also don't really care either. And I'm sure that, I'm not sure, but I imagine that at this point Hugh doesn't really care that much either. So, but my inclination is like, yeah, let's just do it. Why
Okay,
not?
I'm good with it. I didn't oppose. I think one of the things that I'm too embedded in our world, in the Osquery world, to understand if it's useful to a new user or administrator to have a list of fleet managers.
I feel like it might be like they're looking at this thing, they're going like, oh, it's cool, but how do I run it on a bunch of devices? And then to see that there, but also like, should that be in the docs and not in the README? Like maybe, probably, but the README is a step in the right direction, I suppose.
Okay. So just for our meeting notes, it sounds like while no one's super excited, no one's opposed, so let's just do it.
Yeah.
Okay, good enough. I've approved it. I'll merge it after the meeting. Thank you, Zach, for insight and thoughts.
Thank you.
I guess let me make sure that I update Collide to say that we're commercial because we're not freemium anymore. That's everything agenda items. I usually talk about 510. How are we on 510?
I was going to say, yeah, we are definitely still interested in having it. Yeah, we have a customer that specifically needs a bug fix to be able to get status logs.
So we have a handful of PRs still open in our milestone. Alessandro, that's a good point about maybe that it's not an endorsement and that we don't test any of those. Do you want to comment in the PR and I'll like loop back before I merge it or something?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks. If feel free to suggest language and I'll just click commit, or you can. Or if you don't want to, block it and like just note that we should say something and I'll write something. Sorry, 510. So we have a milestone. I want to make sure that the disk encryption PR lands in 510. I can review that. I don't know if someone who isn't Collide wants to review it, or someone who's maybe stronger in C than I am. Other than that, all the other things we have in this milestone seem valuable, but I don't feel strongly about any of them.
What is the disk encryption PR?
What number or why is it?
What is it? Is it update Linux disk encryption, that one?
Update Linux disk encryption to recursively query parent crypt status. This is effectively fixing a 0n² bug in Osquery. It paired with something that I merged earlier today. Basically, the disk encryption table queries. Oh, gods. We have a couple of bugs in the way Linux disk encryption works, and one of the ways they manifest is around if LVM is sitting on an encrypted partition, disk encryption will not correctly represent it. Is that familiar to Linuxy users? Should be. It's been a bug for a while. We've had a couple of people dig at that. And you can kind of see this. this comes out in a couple of ways. And it ends up being like, because disk encryption is querying devices or mounts, I forget which table, block devices or something, it kind of ends up like not correctly traversing to parent volumes. One person PR'd a thing that changed it from equals to maybe like it, but that actually can fall into a memory balloon somewhere Micah found. I'm sorry, that's super garbly. You probably should just read the PR. But basically it fixes the underlying problems we have with you can't, if LVM is on an encrypted partition, it doesn't get represented correctly. So I'm interested in having that one land. The rest seem useful, but I don't have super strong opinions.
Yeah, the LZMA one, I'm going to remove it. So it's being contested upstream. Basically, it doesn't seem to actually be an issue. Someone, so the original CVE, like the report of the CVE pointed to GitHub file, but the GitHub file was missing. Lately, it reappeared, and apparently the issue is you can bring the LZMA decompression to create, like, I don't know, from few kilobytes of a file, a few hundreds megabytes of a file, because you're using a small dictionary for decompression. That's not really, like they say, yeah, that's not really an issue. It's, yeah, there might be some input that may cause a bigger output, but not to the point to be really denial of service. And yeah.
Okay. I think I forget if we automatically add these but if you want to just file this as sort of a false positive or kick it forward, it seems fine.
Oh yeah. I'm just going to like remove it from the milestone and at least close it for now. And actually, I mean, the current version, we did update the liblzma library anyway, and the current version does not have any CV anyway. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
And I see like there's this Yandex one that I know no one here is keen to like set up Yandex accounts to test these. So should we just like look and see if the code seems legit and then accept that?
I think that's fine. I don't think we need to set up yet. Like if the code looks plausible, then we should accept it and assume that someone will tell us if it doesn't work as intended.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. It seems plausible. Obviously, no idea if it works or not, but yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna approve that one.
Okay, the code looked okay to me, but I didn't look super closely, so I kind of imagine the fix waiting for multiple extensions to be loaded seems kind of like an important, nice one. I can't speak to whether the code's right. I don't know that part of Osquery super well. But that one sounds like the kind of thing that maybe gets in the way for people.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we've seen a lot of issues over the years with extension loading. Hmm. Hmm.
Apparently, I'm unable to spell TSC. 2 times I wrote TFC for whatever reason. Just realized.
Oh dear, which things do you think you need TSC on? I feel like that's a big anything folks want to talk aloud about?
Sitting here trying to understand this extensions loading PR. There's some stuff with all these nested lambdas that's a bit tricky to read.
I mean, maybe we should kick it back as too complicated.
As in, you mean to look later for the
Yeah.
next release? Yeah, I see.
Like if the
Again-
implementation is too complicated to easily follow, then it may be hiding bugs, and maybe there's a simpler one. And I don't know.
Well,
I don't know
so
if complexity is necessary.
I mean, I think at a certain point you have to, you also have to add manual testing to understand what's happening. It's fine if it's somewhat complicated, and also I think that it is like, as far as I've seen, they have not added to the complexity. The complexity was already there. So, I mean, I can. Yeah, I would say generally this week I can have a look at it. Yeah, I will not make promises on a specific date, but yeah, I'll try to look into it. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I think most of the things still in the 5.10.0 milestone are very C-ish things. And they all look reasonable to me, but I also know that I can't really review deep C code. So, opinions from others would be good. The ones from Dreamer Dead might be pretty straightforward. Like those we might just be able to accept and call good enough. The one from Micah and then the one on extensions look a little harder to review. But if you're up for reviewing them this week, Stefano, that's awesome. And then we can cut a release or something. So
Yeah, I'll try to.
Okay. People want to talk about anything else, or should we take 5 minutes back?
Five minutes, I'd say.
Works for me. Thank you all for code and for reviews, and see you all in a fortnight.
Thank you. And Steph, I did take a look at the Linux disk encryption PR. Like I'm not immediately familiar enough with it to think that I could give like a great review. So if you feel like you can review it, I'm not offended by the idea of it being only reviewed by Collide people or written.
Okay. I mean, if it passes a sniff test to you, that's probably pretty good. It's a little hard for me to follow that one too. But I trust Micah, so you know.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks,
Yeah.
y'all. Bye.